We're talking compressed natural gas fired vehicle engines and electric vehicles. The president has shown a desire to move in this direction. Help us to understand what the president is thinking, what is propelling this desire of the president.
Yes, you know, of course, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is renowned, not just around this country, but around the continent as a visionary. He is someone who sees things happen before they happen. I recall in the early 2000s when he rolled out the plans for intra-city railway for Lagos. Many people thought it was impossible, and today, of course, everyone has now seen that come into manifestation. This is no different. We are going to see in short order an unprecedented scale of investment, not just in electric vehicle production and distribution, but also in CNG-fueled vehicles, both in production as well as ensuring that you've dealt with the supply side and the demand side. What do I mean by that? Mr. President, seeing, obviously, understanding the pain that Nigerians are facing and feeling throughout all parts of this country as a result of the removal of the fuel subsidy, with the fuel price at an average currently of about 617 naira per litre, and knowing that CNG runs at approximately anywhere between 139 to 170 naira per litre, it's really a no-brainer to move aggressively into ensuring that we are able to adopt CNG-fueled vehicles across, particularly our commercial vehicle, and transportation companies across especially the urban centers of our country, at least in the first phase. How this is going to work is that already we've partnered with an indigenous company, NIPCO, which may be familiar to many Nigerians. They already have 14 CNG filling stations across the country, really the only company to have CNG filling stations at that scale. Clearly, there's need to massively scale that up so that we can get those stations established across the country. But within the parameters of the agreement, which has been struck very recently under this administration between the NNPCL and NIPCO, there's essentially a two-phase program which will lead to the development and establishment of 56 new CNG filling stations nationwide across all states of the Federation. That does not include the co-location of CNG filling facilities at existing NNPC filling stations. These are only NIPCO filling stations that I'm referring to, 56. In phase one, which runs, again, this is time-based because Mr. President understands the urgency required to deal with resolving or alleviating the pains being felt by Nigerians. In the first phase that runs from between now and approximately March 31st, 2024, that's about 9 months, essentially. What we're going to be doing is rolling out 21 CNG filling stations across the country, across all geopolitical zones. And then phase two will run from April 1, 2024 to March 31st, 2025, essentially 1 year later, for the remaining 35 CNG filling stations under our agreement with NIPCO, which brings it to 56. This is going to enable us to service approximately 200,000 customers daily through these 56 CNG filling stations. But in addition to that, these filling stations are going to be run not just on gas pipelines, because you have multiple types of filling stations. And I want to be clear about how this works. You have what we call the online stations. These are stations that are linked directly to the gas feeding pipeline, right? But many of the areas across this country are not yet linked by pipeline. So what you also have within the parameters of this agreement, and there are other agreements which I'll soon cite, but within this agreement, you also have what we call the mother stations. Mother stations are essentially stations that would allow you to fuel what we call mobile cascade mobile cascade units. These are the trucks that will be going to other filling stations to fill the production requirements of those filling stations that are not on the gas pipeline. So, for example, if you have a place like maybe Jigawa or somewhere like that, or even closer, a place like Niger, for example, we would now be able to get to them using these mobile cascade units, which are essentially these mega trucks that will transport the CNG from the mother stations, which will be filling these cascade units, to those stations that are offline, known as daughter booster stations. So you have the mother stations, which is the hub. Then you have the daughter stations, which are offline, that will be fed by the cascade units moving to them from the mother stations. That's how that's going to work. Now, in addition to that, we have now said, look, you cannot just look at putting together CNG filling stations under one company. Yes, that's an important part of this, but we also know that for those stations that cannot be fed online on a gas pipeline in far-flung parts of the country, particularly in the north, we know that, of course, we're going to be heavily relying on what we call virtual pipelines. Virtual pipelines being, truck distribution networks. So what we have in store is there's a company, for example, known as Greenville and LNG, that already has an articulated virtual pipeline network, a network of trucking distribution lines that they've used for PMS filling stations for a long time, and LNG, that we will now be able to leverage on for the transportation of CNG products. It's important to note that with CNG, unlike some of the other fuels, if it's outside of a 250 kilometer radius, that transportation of the CNG product becomes non-viable because of the nature of CNG. So it's important that whatever you're doing is within a 250 kilometer radius, which is why it now becomes very strategic to have the mother stations, which can now feed those stations that will be offline on a sustainable basis. Then, in addition to all of that, the president has said, look, he's a financial architect and a financial engineer. He's a planner and then an executor. So what he's now said is, look, we're dealing with the short-term pains through the arrangements that I've just cited and through some other arrangements. But we also have to look at the medium to long term to ensure that Nigerians living in every part of the country can have access to CNG, not just filling stations, but the kits that will actually enable you to move your car from being PMS dependent to now CNG compliant. So how this is going to work, in addition to the filling stations I mentioned, 56, within the first two phases of the program, ending by April 1st, 2025, which is essentially midterm of this administration. What we're also going to be doing is we're going to put in place over 30 essentially 36 factory kitted equipment workshops where any Nigerian bringing their car, their truck, their motorcycle, even keke napep, can come and have these conversion kits applied to their vehicles so that they can now move from PMS, which is obviously much more expensive, almost 4 times as expensive, to CNG, saving their costs over time.